Well, joining me now, it's Congressman Patrick Maloney. He's a Democrat from New York. He's also the man in charge of the campaign committee that is designed to keep the House in Democratic hands this November. Congressman, it's good to see you, sir.
Good to be with you.
Let me start with the fact that, look, it's our poll shows a pretty even playing field. You've got anger on both sides of the aisle, which can be usually a driver in midterms. That seems to have equalized. Is it fair to say now that there's no moral victory for you? You hold the House, that's a win. You lose the House, that's a loss.
Yeah, that's right. But we have had a summer of strength, and we're going to buck history by making history. We're just in the last few weeks passed historic legislation to finally lower prescription drug costs, capping seniors' out-of-pocket costs, combating climate change, a 40% reduction in just the next 8 years in our emissions, veterans health care that the Republicans tried to stop, and of course gun safety legislation. And that's on top of the American Jobs Bill, the CHIPS and Science Act, which will revitalize our manufacturing sector. Look, we know that we need to get things done. That's the hard path that we've chosen. The other side has had a summer of stumbles, obstructing veterans health care, ripping away 50 years of reproductive freedom, and now trying to defund the FBI and ignore a serious threat to our national security with Trump's latest scandal. We're going to address real problems. We think that's going to bring it home.
One of the issues, though, I think that you have to overcome is the amount of open seats, the amount of members of Congress and the Democratic side that chose not to run. I'll put up the list here. It's quite long. As you can see, we have to use really small font in order to get all the names in. These folks left when they thought this was going to be a midterm that looked like it was going to be a disaster for your party. Do you wish these folks would have rethought and had had more confidence that the political landscape might have changed?
Listen, we've been counted out for a while now, but we are having a comeback, and we have great candidates all over the country, veterans, diverse candidates that look like America, that are a good fit for their district, and we're excited to share those candidates with the American people. Look, you're seeing us come back in the polls. Our frontliners are battle-tested and strong. They have a huge advantage, by the way, over their Republican opponents in terms of their campaigns, their cash on hand. They're getting their votes right. They have historic deliverables that they've brought home to their districts, better roads, better bridges, clean drinking water, an end to this pandemic. Yeah. Look, we've got a story to tell. We're going to go out and tell it.
Well, the other side has a story that they're telling, and I want to play a couple of examples, and these are in your frontline districts where Republicans are hitting them. Here's one on the economy. This one is without sound here, but it's hitting the what you guys call the Inflation Reduction Act by saying, hey, this isn't touching inflation, higher taxes on American people, American families, and this is all being done in recession. And there's also some ads here that's going to roll in here that hits the Democrats on crime and defund the police. So let me ask you this.
My brother had been gunned down and nearly killed by MS-13 gang members. I knew then that I would join law enforcement.
Let me ask you this. A lot of those frontliners wanted more to counter the defund the police narrative, and Congress ended up not passing anything. Are you concerned that these issues like high cost and crime are still going to trump democracy and abortion in these swing districts?
Well, let's look at where we are. Gas prices are more than $1 lower than they were just about 60 days ago, and they're still going down. That's good. So the inflation that goes along with that is coming down as well. It's not where we want it to be, but we're making real progress. The other side, of course, has no plan to lower costs. They only have a ploy to win power for themselves. So we're working the problem. They're working on their own power. And on the other issues you mentioned, my goodness, every Republican voted against lower prescription drug costs and a cap on seniors' out-of-pocket costs of $2,000 a year. That's the kind of real progress that under President Biden's leadership and under Speaker Pelosi's leadership, we're getting done. Now, we've got to go tell people what we're doing. But the other side, again, is interested only in their own power and has taken away 50 years of reproductive freedom, wants to whitewash the attack on our democracy, will do nothing. This MAGA crowd will do nothing while kids are getting gunned down in their classrooms. We've got a plan for your future. They've got a plan to win power, and that's the choice.
Speaking of power, there's a lot of people who thought that you oversaw a very cynical ploy in order to help a Trump-backed opponent in the Meijer district in Michigan. After look, you see the result. You got the candidate that you wanted, apparently, there. But you put party over country, did you not? And is that something you're comfortable with?
Absolutely not did we put party over country. The moral imperative right now, Mr. Todd, is to keep the dangerous MAGA Republicans who voted to overturn our election out of power. There were 139 of them who voted against the results of the election back in January 2021. So this danger didn't start with the primary in Michigan. But let's talk about that. We believe that by running a commercial that called our opponent an extremist who was too conservative for Western Michigan, we teed up the choice in the fall. We've got a strong pro-choice Democrat there named Hillary Scholten. I hope people will support her. We're going to win that seat. The big loser in the Michigan primary was Kevin McCarthy and this MAGA crowd, and they know it.
All right, but if Mr. Gibbs ends up getting elected, in the words of Peter Meijer, with a historically unpopular president, Joe Biden, and inflation at 40-year highs, less electable doesn't mean unelectable. If this man, Mr. Gibbs, wins, then have you not helped an election denier get into Congress?
Again, this danger didn't start with Mr. Gibbs. By every measure, he's the weaker candidate. Don't take my word for it. The Cook Political Report says it's far more likely the Democrats are going to win that seat now. That's doing our job. And let's remember, Peter Meijer was an anti-choice extremist who also was going to vote to have Jim Jordan run the Judiciary Committee, give you 2 years of nonsense investigating Hunter Biden or some other silliness, when what we need to do is keep up the progress on climate change, on prescription drug costs, on helping seniors with health care.
Look, when you're on the Democratic side of the aisle saying, hey, Republicans need to stand up to their own party and put country over party, and someone like Peter Meijer does and voted to impeach the president, put his political career on the line, look, I understand the strategic decision that you make, but you've seen our poll. There's a reason everybody hates both political parties. It's cynical moves like this, is it not?
Chuck, my job is to win elections for the Democrats, and I take that seriously because the moral imperative is keeping the gavel out of the hands of Kevin McCarthy, who would have overturned the results of the election. Again, this danger didn't start with Mr. Gibbs. I understand that there are difficult moral questions, philosophical questions about tactics. That's always true in politics. You better believe it. But here's the deal. We are more likely to win that seat. John Gibbs is a weak opponent. He's an extremist with a vicious anti-choice record. He can't string a set of policies together that will make sense for Western Michigan. We're going to win that seat. And we believe that by keeping those dangerous people out of power, we address the larger moral imperative, and that's our job.
I know you're on the ballot Tuesday. There's also a special election in New York that basically is testing these two competing messages. You guys are on the Democratic side on abortion. On the Republican side, they're running on inflation. Is it fair to call that the winner, the party that wins that special, the one that has the upper hand?
Oh, well, that should be a Republican victory. I see that they're panic spending in the last week. They're clearly worried. Look at what happened in Kansas. We won 14 counties that Donald Trump carried in Kansas. In the swing congressional district there, it got 68% support for abortion rights. In Minnesota, in that special election, we closed the gap in half. And in upstate New York, you know, Pat Ryan, our candidate, he's a West Point grad. He's a war hero, started a business. He's been running a county, Ulster County. He's a great candidate. I think you're going to see him perform very well. And I know the Republicans are panicking.
All right. Congressman Sean Patrick Maloney, the Democrat charged with keeping the House in Democratic hands. Thanks for coming on and sharing your perspective.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.